So for today's video journal, I wanted to do an amendment or a call out for my previous lecture video that I created called Understanding the Matrix. I originally called it Escaping the Matrix. However, I want people to understand that this isn't something that we're trying to escape, because it's been scientifically proven through physics, through other sciences and practices that we most definitely live in a matrix. The matrix that I'm referring to in terms of understanding is the one where systems have been built to suppress and oppress large populations of individuals and keep them at a lower vibration. So when we bring awareness to that matrix that has been imposed on top of the matrix that we're already in, we begin to see that there are ways to overcome it and to understand it, bring awareness to it, so that we can play the game instead of getting played. That's one of my favorite quotes. I don't know where I got it from or who it came from, but I like to joke around and say, like, I'm playing the game instead of getting played. This part of the matrix that I'm referring to are systems that have been deeply enveloped into the human psyche, so much so that it's created generational trauma, and on the other extreme, it's created generational wealth. So if you are able to utilize it to your advantage, like I said, and understand it, how it works, you can decide which end of that spectrum you want to be in. And that is basically the breakdown of the lecture, is bringing to people's awareness the systems that are in place to keep people stuck, to keep the minority wealthy families very, very rich and keep them that way, so that the majority are continuously impoverished or wondering how and when they will break out of this cycle. It all comes down to awareness, and so you don't know what you don't know. So the idea of the lecture was to bring into your awareness just a very surface level understanding of how these systems do just that. So there's a matrix on top of the matrix. And going a little bit deeper into the actual matrix that we encapsulate here on this earth plane, it's something that I saw in a vision when I did my very first ayahuasca journey, which I've written about several times, and I'll link that down below. But I saw vividly how, because we live in a matrix, this further reiterates the fact that we have the ability, the power, and the resources and the tools to create our reality. Why and how does this work? Well, once you are aware that you are living in a matrix, and I'm not talking about the systems when I'm talking about just the base level matrix, it operates on a certain frequency, vibration, right? Inputs, outputs. And what you input is what you're going to get out. That's just the way it works. That's the way computer programs work. That's the way text messaging works. You type a message and you hit send. That's what the person's going to receive. That's how this works. And so when you understand that, when you understand the matrix from that point of view, you can see how it's not this big scary thing. It's a system that was created, that our spiritual bodies, our souls came into to overcome. So in a way, yes, it is a game, but it's not meant to be a game of suffering. It's not meant to be a game of dissatisfaction. This matrix came with a code, and the code was essentially taken away by the second layer of the matrix that was built. From as long as we can remember, this matrix has this secondary matrix, I'll call it that, has been put into place for generations, millennium. This secondary matrix was put into place to keep us from understanding the primary matrix and how it operates and how it works. Once you get through the secondary, once you bring awareness to the secondary matrix, you're able to start operating in that primary matrix, and that is when you put in your inputs and you get exactly what you desire as an output. What I mean by this, for example, I know that consistency is key to everything that we do, whether it be taking a course, whether it be learning something new, which is taking a course, or in creations, right? In our creation, if we're consistent with that and we consistently create, we're only going to get better. When you set a goal to achieve something and you write down the action steps and the actions you need to take, and you take those steps, that is your input, because the output will be you achieving your goal. When you do this, this is you in the matrix, okay? The primary matrix. However, if you're not aware of the secondary matrix, you may not understand how you being malnourished is probably the reason why you're unmotivated to be consistent, or you being stuck in the financial matrix is why you haven't been able to achieve your goal of generational wealth or financial freedom, right? When you understand all of this, you'll begin to see that you have to overcome and understand the secondary matrix in order to participate in the primary one, which is actually a beautiful thing, because when you get out here and you start, really living life from that perspective of, this is a game and I can really have, be, and do anything I desire with it. There are rules and laws to this, so don't just go out there and just do whatever, right? There are rules and laws, hence why we have the primary matrix and the secondary. But I will say the secondary is good for some things, but not all things. There's just a few. Yeah, so once you start to see the beauty in all of this, you'll really start to see how, as spiritual beings, we are able to navigate and operate in a space with so many parameters. But once you hack the system, and once you bring to your awareness how the system works, you now become the operator of the system. And that is a beautiful place to be. I just want to leave you all with that message. Check out my lecture if you haven't already. I broke down the entire systematic matrix. And like I said, it's very surface level, so I will be sharing future videos on each part and going into detail. I'll also be sharing the full course, the full lecture in my community, so the link is down below. Check it out, and I'll see you guys next time.